UFC Vegas 9 is in the books. It was a rather short night of fights. We started with 10 fights on the card, saw 2 of them get pulled for COVID-related issues, another fight rescheduled based on weight loss issues. So we end with only 7 fights. So this is going to be a rather short video. Here's my winners and losers of UFC Vegas 9. First fight to highlight here is the middleweight bout between Andre Muniz and Bartosz Fabinski. Now this one didn't last real long, less than 3 minutes. And Fabinski early on took down the BJJ black belt, which is never really a good idea so early in the fight. Muniz tries a guillotine choke. He appears to really be going for it, even though Fabinski's not really in that trap. I'm thinking to myself, it's a mistake. You're going to tire your arms out. Don't go for a sub that you obviously don't have. And sure enough, Fabinski pops his head out. But Muniz immediately rolls to a triangle choke, forcing Fabinski to circle away, which is what he should have done. But he made a critical error and left his arm on the ground, left his hand under Muniz's armpit. Muniz then quickly slaps the armbar on from the bottom, capitalizing on a very slick setup, and gets that armbar submission in less than 3 minutes in the first round. Muniz came into this fight as the underdog. He comes out of it 2-0 in the UFC. He got 2 fights on the Contender Series, which he won. He's now extends his streak to 6 wins. Future's looking pretty good for the kid. Andre Muniz, big winner. In a featherweight bout, we saw Ray Rodriguez taking on Brian Kelleher. Now, props to Rodriguez for taking this fight on 1-day notice. And props to Kelleher for not turning the fight down. It was supposed to be Ricky Simon a while back. Again, COVID-related issues. He got replaced by Kevin Natividad, and I'm not sure why he had to pull out, but he did. And Ray Rodriguez pops in on 1-day notice. This kind of stuff, it doesn't bother Kelleher, man. He's a company man. He's here to fight whomever, wherever, whenever. So we know Kelleher, and sure, he's got bombs on the end of his arms, which may be why Rodriguez decided to try a takedown so early, but I guess Rodriguez didn't watch the film. Either that or the big lights just made him forget his game plan. But this makes Kelleher's 7th guillotine choke. He's also got 3 wins by rear naked choke. I mean, this guy goes for your neck, and he knows how to finish the fight. There's really not much else to say here. I've already been talking longer than the fight lasted. Kelleher officially welcomes Ray Rodriguez to the UFC. He's now 3-1 in 2020 alone. He ends this fight in only 39 seconds and looked good doing it. Brian Kelleher, big winner. In a welterweight bout, we saw Michel Pereira and Zelina Medeev. And this was a very entertaining fight, though really not very competitive. This whole thing starts off with an early scuffle at the weigh-ins when Medeev face shoves Pereira, and we got a little bit of an appetizer for this fight. But once the fight started, Pereira just stole the show. He gave us spinning kicks, jumping knees, showtime kicks, showtime punches, hands behind the back, open hands, slap boxing. He even gave us 5 or 6 seconds of freestyle dancing in there. We even got an intense stare down at the end of the first round. And I'd have to watch this fight again, which I probably will just for sheer entertainment. But I have to watch this fight again to catalog all the spectacular techniques that Pereira pulled off in there. But of all the flashy things he pulled off, many of which were effective, it was the straight jabs, the straight kicks, really the basic maneuvers that damaged his opponent the most. And then after about 14 minutes of unpredictable fighting maneuvers, Pereira managed to surprise me one more time by executing a suplex and aggressively snatching up a rear naked choke. That was really about the only thing I didn't expect to see in this fight. There's a lot to be impressed with here. Pereira's defense was great. Slipping punches and dodging his attacks. His conditioning was great. It's been suspect in the past, but he never looked tired. He never even looked sweaty. And his composure, man, this is what I've been waiting to see. It's what I've been calling for. A way to stay composed and collected while keeping that wild, unpredictable style that we all love to see, and will undoubtedly garner him a huge fan base in fights to come. Michel Pereira has turned the page, everybody. And the next chapter, he says, is life in Vegas with the UFC PI, so the sky's really the limit for this guy. I was already a big fan, but now more than ever, I'm really looking forward to the rest of his career. Michel Pereira, big winner. Zelim Imadaev, on the other hand, was just completely outclassed. He's now on a 3-fight skid after going 8-0 to start his career. Now, I talked about this in my prediction video, but most of his opponents in those first 8 fights were pretty questionable. Zelim may have just been exposed, and he may find himself looking for a new employer pretty soon. At 0-3 in the UFC, those first 8 fights are starting to look more and more like padded stats. I mean, he came into the UFC with a lot of clout and big things were expected. But it's now looking like he may be the newest entry on an increasingly long list of busts. Zelim Imadaev, big loser. The co-main event was between the light heavies Ovin St. Preux and Alonzo Menifield. I was surprised to see the odds here, not so much that OSP was the underdog, but that Menifield was more or less a 2-1 favorite. I wouldn't have thought that. I was also surprised to see how much bigger OSP was than Menifield. I mean, the size differential was obvious. This fight was going exactly the way I thought it would, at least on OSP's part, until he dropped that bomb. I mean, good Lord, I did not see that coming. And OSP gets the KO walk-off win in the second round. I did expect to see Menifield come out strong and fast, but he really never got going. I'm not sure what Menifield's game plan was here. There was about 2 minutes or so at the beginning of the second round where he didn't throw anything. Maybe he had felt OSP's power and just didn't want any part of it. I don't know. At 37 years old, OSP is starting to look a little slow, but maybe he was just sticking to a smart game plan. He kept his distance, is using his kicks, which were very good. He was cutting off the cage, making his opponent do most of the work. And, he didn't have to be fast, only explosive. And when the opportunity presented itself, OSP exploded, proving that he can still get it done against younger, fresher, faster opposition. OSP, big winner. The main event, of course, was a heavyweight fight between Alistair Overeem and Augusto Sakai. Now, this was a fun fight. Sakai came out and won those first 2 rounds, I think, even though it wasn't by a whole lot, in my opinion. I've always been pretty high on Overeem. I've been a fan of this guy for 20 years or so. But one thing I don't like about him is his tendency to just shell up against the cage and absorb the onslaught from his opponent. And this happened several times in the first 2 rounds, and that's what probably lost in the first 2 rounds, even though, in my opinion, he landed the more damaging shots then. But Sakai did look good early on. He looked eager. He was getting busy with punches and bunches again up against the cage. But the problem with Overeem is that he's going to be better than you somewhere. And against Sakai, it was on the ground. Reem figured this out in the 3rd round, and he took Sakai down pretty easily. He did some damage and never allowed Sakai to get back up. Showing his veteran status, Reem once again took Sakai to the mat with ease in the 4th round and just changed the whole fight. After having done enough to win the first 2 rounds, Sakai, man, he gave this fight away. And he passed up on a huge opportunity. We've talked about this, but right now in the heavyweight division, it's a great time to make a title run. And Augusto, his run got tripped up. Considering that Sakai abandoned the game plan that was working, appeared to more or less give up after the 4th round, and definitely handed over a real shot at a contender spot, I gotta call Augusto Sakai a loser here. Overeem, on the other hand, at 40 years old, he's truly evolved as a fighter, and like OSP in that last match, seems to be conserving his power and energy until it's really needed. His fight IQ was truly on display, finding the area of the game where he was most likely to win, and then sticking it to his opponents. Overeem is a tough out for anybody, and with 2 wins in a row against top 10 contenders, he really could be in the middle of a title run. He's got a history with every single heavyweight ranked above him, and as an intelligent fighter, That means he's that much closer to figuring out each one of them. Alistair's got a few fights left before putting the lid on his legendary career, and maybe that lid's going to be made of UFC gold. Alistair Overeem, big winner. So there it is, short and sweet. My winners and losers of UFC Vegas 9. We got another good one coming up next weekend, again at the UFC Apex. So hit that subscribe button so you can be notified of our prediction video when it gets uploaded, as well as any other content that might come out this week. Till next time.